Welcome to a special edition of Social Business Engine, brought to you in cooperation with Social Fresh at Social Fresh East, July 17th, 2014, in Orlando, Florida, at the Omni Hotel and Resort in Orlando. I am here with 400 of my closest social business friends here at Social Fresh East, and looking forward to interviewing a number of practitioners and thought leaders to help you advance your social business journey. So sit back and relax and enjoy my interviews from Social Fresh East.
My name is Jason Keath. I am the founder and CEO of Social Fresh.
Jason, thank you so much for partnering with Social Business Engine for the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. I mean, anybody wants to come in and do some interviews, share some technology, some tips, talk to some smart people and share their message, we love that. That's what we're all about.
Yeah, you are indeed. You're a conference and educational company, and I'd like to start a discussion with what are some of the trends that you're seeing, Jason, as you conduct your conferences and put on your educational events? You're exposed to dozens, if not hundreds, of brands. What are some of the trends that you're seeing in social?
Yeah, I think in social, how it impacts the business. We do interact with a lot of companies, from very small to massive global companies, and I think just the inability to avoid the impact of social on all your business functions, on all your business structures, I think is becoming very apparent. So even companies that have kind of shied away from social, whether they're a small business or whether they're a large airline, they kind of have to now. They because they're confronted with crises where they're going to be on the forefront of social publicly in a marketing way or a PR way, whether they want to or not. So they kind of have to confront those situations, or their employees are on social and big personalities. Or their competitors are using it in very unique ways. So it's now kind of expected that they have to jump in there. So you see a lot of discomfort and a lot of companies moving kind of in a slow way but methodical way to make sure they're building social into the C-suite, to make sure their leaders, and especially their public leaders, are knowledgeable about how social works, can get a message out there on social, or can at least be kind of a personal brand out there in some way. And also, I think you're seeing a lot of internal advocacy happening, where using either internal technology like an internal social network or a Yammer or something like that, or using just kind of internal relationship comms, where you're an employee of a big company, but we want to make sure that that you can talk about maybe it's Hilton or JetBlue or something like that. We want to empower you to be able to help in a certain specific way. You've seen a lot of companies invest in that and realize the value there, and you realize that it's a lot of work. You can't just jump in and say, hey, all of our employees can tweet, or all of our employees can answer customer service questions. You kind of have to have a system. You need some type of structure. You need a lot of work to make that happen. And I think those are two of the big areas, two of the very public-facing areas where it's happening very fast.
How are you seeing, Jason, the role of the marketing department and the role of this position, the social media manager? Do you see that evolving? I've noticed that a number of the people that are in attendance here have that role.
Yeah.
Is that role becoming bigger, or do you think that it's beginning to decline as we sit here in the middle of 2014?
Yeah, it's tough. So I'd say we're like 7 years into social media marketing, really, as an evolution of an industry. And I think it's definitely growing. I think if you're in the industry of social media, it feels like it's probably shrinking a little bit, but what's happening is there's still companies getting on to Facebook. There's still companies getting on to LinkedIn, right? There's still companies that have never done a social ad or never built a community, and the value of those things is becoming more and more apparent. So because of that, their first step is usually hire a social media manager. And the companies that have been around for a while, they may have a lot of social media managers, or they may have a social media manager that develops into a director of social or a VP of social. So I think the ones that have been around are maturing their structure and growing their teams. And I think it's still a core piece of, even when they're not marketers, they're a social media manager. Even when they're in PR or comms or HR sometimes, across silos, that becomes a really common title, even when they're more of a community manager or more of a director,
Right. Another observation I've made is that a number of the companies that are sponsors at your events are social business technology providers.
Yes.
So it's no secret that social business technology is maturing and evolving.
Yes.
So what are you seeing there?
Well, there's two trends. There's niche, and then there's dashboard, everything. So you have a few select companies that are acquiring companies and building specific technologies so they can be the everything answer for a company like Walmart or McDonald's or Omni, right? They want to be the one-stop shop of your analytics, your publishing, your listening. So because of that, you're seeing a lot of really interesting acquisitions, and then you have a lot of niche companies. So you have companies like Simply Measured, who's maintained as a great listening tool. You have companies like FormStack, who just does forms, and they do it really well, and OfferPop, who does mainly contests, right? So I think there's a little bit of the competition has weeded out a lot of those companies that try to do just a few things really poorly, and now they're focused on the big companies that bought everybody, the Oracles and the Salesforce and the Adobe, and Hootsuite really is becoming a competitor there. And then all the niche companies that have chosen to specialize in something, like Synthesio is really, a great enterprise listening tool for especially companies that are international. And the ones that have focused well are doing really well. And then there's, the few that have risen to the top that can try to do everything.
Okay. One final question.
Okay.
What advice would you give to organizations that are still young in this social business journey?
Well, I think, to harken back to the first question, you have to realize it's inevitable. It's going to be painful. It's going to be a little uncomfortable because you're doing something new. Companies are going to have to open up in ways they haven't before, which is just kind of against that corporate control that they've had that fist around for so long. So I think invest in talent. So both on the marketing side, people that can create content and can create different types of content, people that are comfortable taking on new roles, like a journalist that's willing to pick up a camera and take his own photos for a blog post, or a photographer that's really willing to do a podcast, things like that. People that are willing to try things new and create a lot of great content on their own, super valuable. And then people, the other thing they need to hire is analytics and metrics, people that know those numbers and know how to assess things and test things and tell you what's working and what's not. And then I think openness and transparency. You got to figure out how that's going to work for your company. If you have things you're ashamed of as a company or you're trying to hide, you better get rid of them now. You better explain that story, get a public-facing story around it, because it's going to come out eventually and you need to own that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Jason, you're making a great contribution to the industry. Again, these two events, Social Fresh East, Social Fresh West, your educational and online events, your content that you produce through your blog. It's all fantastic, and again, it's a wonderful contribution, and I applaud you for it.
Thank you, sir.
And once again, I thank you for partnering with Social Business Engine here at Social Fresh East.
Well, thank you for coming out. We're happy you're here.